You will now discover the forbidden truth about modern life, such a simple and powerful revelation that it can completely change the way you see the world. But beware, throughout your life, they hid it from you. As you ran after goals, status, and distractions, someone laughed behind the curtain. You weren't living, just obeying. In this video, I will show you the hidden key, the one that can free your mind from the invisible imprisonment where everyone is still in prison. And after hearing it, you will never look at life the same way. Have you ever realized that modern life never allows silence? Whether in the traffic of Sao Paulo, in the Rio de Janeiro subway, or in the line of a bank in Belo Horizonte, there is always a background noise. Horns, notifications, advertisements, hasty voices. It is as if the system itself is afraid that you hear something very dangerous, your own conscience. This is the first forbidden truth. Modernity fears silence because in it is born inner freedom, and you, perhaps without realizing it, have been trained to escape this meeting. Think, when was the last time you just sat without a cell phone, without television, without someone talking by your side? Maybe you can't remember. You may never have experienced for more than a few minutes. The emptiness scares, but it is in it that the revelation lives. It is no coincidence that you have come here. God always has a purpose. Today you can fully receive the precious blood ebook of the Lamb, a spiritual gift that will strengthen your faith, bring peace to your heart, and renew your hope. But beware, this opportunity is limited and can go down at any time. To receive your free copy, just click the link set in the comments and download immediately. Those who dive into the blood of the Lamb find a peace that the world cannot offer. Click the link set in the comments and download your free ebook now. Henry David Thoreau, isolated by the Walden Lake in the 19th century, realized something that is still current in Brazil today. Civilization manufactures artificial needs, while nature shows us that almost nothing is essential. But those who profit from your distraction don't want you to know that. Therefore, the more noise, the more consumption, the more hurry, the more alienation, the more stimulus, the less depth. Look around. Young people consuming the same fast videos, workers running without breathing, forgotten elderly while the city barks like a hungry dog. Everyone is too busy to ask themselves, what is it for real living? And this question is the portal they hide from you. It is no chance that more and more Brazilians suffer from anxiety, depression, and feeling of emptiness, symptoms of an imprisoned spirit. Modern life is a showed spectacle so that you never realize the invisible arrest in which it walks. But there are cracks in this theater, in silence, in the break, in the contemplation of a solitary tree in the middle of chaos. The system loses control. Imagine yourself now turning off all the screens, closing your eyes and just listening to the sound of the wind crossing an empty street in the late afternoon. At this moment you realize that there is something that cannot be sold, measured, or controlled, something that has always been to you. This is the secret that modern life hides. True wealth is not in the hurry of tomorrow, but in the fullness of the now. But be careful. Those who find this begin to see the hidden gear that govern the world. And once you see, you can no longer unravel. What would happen if a whole Brazilian generation arouses for this dangerous simplicity? That's what we need to talk about. Have you noticed that modern life has built a fake mirror before you? It does not reflect who you are, only who the system wants you to be. This mirror shines in each advertisement that crosses its timeline, in each outdoor on the marginal, in each product that promises instant happiness. It is a seductive but empty reflection. And without realizing it, you started to believe that the image projected on it is yourself. But let me tell you the forbidden truth. This reflection is a disguised prison of freedom. Because when you believe you need the new car, the mobile phone of the year, the perfect body, or the Instagrammable life, you are already kneeling before an invisible altar, the altar of consumption. The curious thing is that, in Brazil, this game is even more cruel. While millions run behind the illusion of status, a crowd does not even have access to the basics. The system creates two parallel realities, one of artificial ostentation, another of raw survival. Both, however, feed the same gear, keep you away from liberating simplicity. Thoreau wrote that man is rich in proportion to the things he can give up. But modern Brazil seems to teach the opposite. The more you carry, the more you are worth. And it is exactly then the trick is. You never carry things, carries chains. How many times have you believed you would only be happy after gaining something specific? The job, the diploma, the house, the wedding, the car. And when he won, he realized that the sensation lasted shortly, and soon another desire came, even greater. This cycle is the engine that keeps you running without ever coming. This is what philosophers would call hedonic treadmill, a treadmill that never takes anywhere. But there are times when the mirror fails. Maybe on a rain afternoon inside when the energy ends and the house dives in the dark. Perhaps in a lonely walk, when you realize that a free sunset brings more peace than all the objects of the showcase. In these moments, you see the breach. True life is not in the reflection, but behind it. And here comes a disturbing question. If we all broke this invisible mirror, what would be left? Maybe not chaos, but simplicity. Perhaps not poverty, but freedom. But would you have the courage to face your face without the makeup of modern illusions? Would it endure the nudity of the truth? The mirror is still there, waiting for you to believe him. But the crack has already begun to open. And who looks through this slit discovers something that can change everything. Have you ever felt you never have time? What, as much as it runs, the day ends up without you really lived? This is not an accident. It is a project. There is a secret clock governing your life. It is not that of your wrist nor that of the cell phone. It is the system's invisible clock which determines when you should wake up, work, rest, and even dream. And without realizing it, you synchronized your soul to him. Think, who has defined that you need to work 5 or 6 days a week to deserve to rest? Who says your youth must be sacrificed in an exhaustive routine to perhaps enjoy life when you are old and tired? And why do they call it normality? In Brazil, this watch is even more cruel. Millions wake up before the sun to face crowded buses, overcrowded trains, endless traffic jams, stolen hours of life in the name of minimal survival. Meanwhile, few enjoy the abundance created by collective sweat. And you realize time is not tightly distributed. Thoreau said he didn't want to waste his life earning life, but we modern Brazilians have been trained to believe that there is only dignity in sacrifice, even if sacrifice steals us the very essence of living. Notice how this secret clock manipulates even your desires. He says that you need to produce early, always consume, rest little, and if you dare to stop, you feel guilty. It is as if resting was a crime against the logic of the system, and in fact it is. Every minute of true leisure is an act of rebellion. Now think to me, what would happen if you stopped obeying this watch? If one day just decided not to run? If you had the courage to walk against the flow, while everyone runs without knowing where? The system fears this possibility, because the moment you find out what time is life, and that delivering it without conscience is the worst form of slavery, control begins to crumble. Imagine millions of Brazilians waking up to this truth, refusing the secret clock. The streets, the offices, the factories, all silent, because people chose to live instead of just producing. Would it be revolution or collapse? Or perhaps would it be the first sign of a true freedom? The clock continues to run, marking the hours you will never have back. The question is, will he let him decide his destination, or will it break his hands before it's too late? Have you noticed how Brazilian cities have become giant cages? High buildings, narrow streets, walls, railings, cameras. Everything seems to rise in the name of security, but deep down imprisons. Look around. The worker who spends 3 hours in traffic is arrested. The young man who can't get out without Wi-Fi signal is stuck. The elderly who fears walking on the street is stuck. You perhaps are too. Modern prison has no visible guards. It is not necessary. She sustains herself in fear. Fear of violence, fear of poverty, fear of loneliness, fear of not being accepted. And it is this fear that makes you accept invisible currents, accept surveillance, accept control, accept to exchange freedom for a promise of protection that never arrives. Thoreau, when he took refuge in Walden, wrote that, "The city is a place of a lonely crowd." He did not know Sao Paulo, Rio, or Belo Horizonte, but described perfectly what we live in. Millions together and at the same time, separated, physically close, spiritually distant. And here is the truth forbidden. The more cities grow, the more the spirit shrinks. The more skyscrapers rose, the more the hearts are found. Because life urbana kidnapped something essential: direct contact with nature, with silence, with inner truth. Do you notice? It's not just air pollution. It is the pollution of the soul. It's not just the traffic jam. It is the bottling of thoughts. It is not just the rush of the bodies. It is the hurry of the senses. But there is a curious detail. Even in the most suffocating cities, nature insists on resisting. A tree that breaks the concrete, a bird that sings in the middle of the avenue, an unexpected rain that paralyzes the routine and forces everyone to stop. They are silent reminders that real life cannot be totally domesticated. What if you dare listen to these signs? If you decide to follow the singing of a sabia instead of the horn of a car, if you walk without destination instead of running to meet a time, perhaps find out that bars have always been open, but most never realize. Because believing in prison is more comfortable than risking freedom. And that's exactly how the system wins, turning the cage at home. The city continues to grow, increasingly gray. But the question echoes, can you still escape into yourself? Have you ever stopped to realize that inside you there is a desert? I do not speak of sand and sun, but of silence, empty, sacred space. This inner desert is what the modernity fears the most you discover, because when someone crosses this territory, it no longer comes back the same. Find out that you don't need so many things. It discovers that abundance can be born precisely what is missing. It discovers that the external world loses power when the inmate wakes up, but the system cannot allow it. Therefore, it fills the desert with stimuli, notifications, series, social networks, advertising, tasks, all so that you never have the courage to sit alone with your own thoughts. Ask yourself, when was the last time you endured absolute silence without feeling uncomfortable? When was the last time you let the questions come without rush to answer them? Perhaps you realize that loneliness, in fact, is not absence, it is presence. Thoreau said that the mass of men leads a life of silent despair. And here in Brazil, we see this in every face tired of public transport, in every look lost in the endless lines, in each automatic gesture in front of a screen. The despair is there but disguised, and if no one looks inside, it will remain invisible. But there is a secret. In the inner desert, you find not death, but the source of life, because that's where you find that you don't have to be defined by employment, status, money. There you understand that being is more radical than having. There you realize that freedom is not doing everything you want, but if you let go of what you never needed. Imagine now if millions of Brazilians accepted to walk in this internal desert, if they had the courage to face the void instead of escaping him. What would happen to the logic of a system that depends on incessant consumption to survive? He would collapse. And perhaps this is the greatest fear of modern structures. Not that you shake yourself on the streets, but you wake up in silence. Because an awake individual is like a flame in the dark, contagious, illuminates, transforms. The desert is there inside you waiting, but the crossing requires courage. Would you dare to take the first step? Do you believe your thoughts are really yours? Or were they carefully planted inside you? We live surrounded by invisible engineers. They do not wear helmets but algorithms. They do not build buildings but narratives. And your goal is not to raise walls, but shape consciousness. In Brazil, they appear on each feed, in each distorted news, in each calculated ad. They know what you want even before you know. And, the most disturbing, they also know what you are afraid. These invisible engineers project their routine. They decide which videos to appear on your screen, which songs will play on the radio, which opinions will become viral. They transform your mind into fertile ground to plant desires and gather obedience. You think you chose, but it was chosen. He thinks he wants, but was desired by another. He thinks he is free, but he is inside a maze built to seem infinite. Thoreau believed that true freedom is born only when we learn to think for ourselves. But the modern system fears just that. Therefore, it offers excess distraction and reflection on scarcity. You want you to consume fast but never question deeply. And there is something even more unsettling. These engineers are not just on the screens. They are in schools that teach you to obey more than to create, in jobs that value productivity more than humanity, in religions that promise heaven but imprison in dogmas. In each space where your mind it could be free, they put an invisible fence. Now I ask you, what would a society be like where each individual thought authentically, without the filter of the imposed narratives? Would it be chaotic? Would it be dangerous? Or would it be finally alive? Perhaps that is why, from an early age, we were taught to fear the question, because those who question can find out, and whoever discovers can break free. In silence, in the inner desert, in the look beyond the fake mirror, you begin to see the invisible engineers. And once you see them, the game changes. Because their power only exists as long as you believe there is no way out. But will you have the courage to break this mental maze? Or will you keep believing that your thoughts are really yours? Have you ever realized that modernity has built a machine that breathes for you? She dictates her rhythm, her hunger, her sleep, her hurry. And little by little, you forgot what it was like to breathe on your own. In Brazil, this machine is not just made of gears. It is made of slips, deadlines, debts, applications, schedules. It is in every goal you need to hit, in each work shift you can't refuse, on every screen that holds you until dawn. The frightening thing is that you believe you need it to survive, but in fact, it is she who survives from you. As a giant parasite, the machine feeds on your energy, your attention, your time, your life. Thoreau believed that life should be simple and essential, but here the machine taught the opposite, that the more complicated, the better. The more full of tasks, the more value. The more tired you are, the more worthy it seems. And so you are proud of the currents that hold it. Ask yourself, when was the last time you took a deep breath without haste? When was the last time you felt the wind on your face without looking at the clock? When was the last time you walked just for walking aimlessly, without destination? The machine does not allow, because if you allow yourself, you will remember something dangerous, that life is greater than work, greater than consumption, greater than control. Imagine millions of Brazilians turning off their cell phones for a full day, the emptied avenues of horns, the silent offices, the hungry algorithms without anyone to feed. It would be the collapse of the machine. It would be the beginning of freedom. But here is the dilemma. The machine never presents itself as an enemy. She introduces herself as a friend. It says it helps you, that connects you, that protects you. And when you least expect it, she already breathes for you, thinks for you, decides for you. This is the forbidden truth. Every time you deliver your attention without consciousness, the machine grows. Each time you resist, the machine weakens. So answer in silence. Are you still breathing? Or is it the machine that breathes in your place? Have you ever wondered why modern life always seems to promise more than delivery? It is like a mythological siren that sings from the top of the screens, the showcases, the advertisements. Your voice is sweet, seductive, irresistible, but the fate of those who follow this corner is the wreck. In Brazil, this siren sings loudly. She promises status with the new car funded 60 times. It promises happiness with the cell phone that will be obsolete in a year. Promises love with the image filtered in dating apps. Promises freedom while increasing the weight of the currents. And you follow the singing, not because it is weak, but because it is human. The system knows its vulnerabilities. You know how to touch your wounds. You know how to offer the right illusion at the right time. Thoreau already warned, most men live lives in silent despair. But this despair in the modern era is anesthetized by daily doses of rapid entertainment, easy promises, and incessant stimuli. The siren sings so that you do not hear the silence that would reveal the truth. But there is something that almost no one notices. The singing of the siren is not just external. Over time, he begins to live inside you. You convince yourself that you need to run, conquer, show. You yourself become the guardian of prison. And here is the revelation. The wreck is not sudden. It is not the drowning of a moment. It is slow, gradual, almost imperceptible. That's when you realize that your youth has been running. It is when you discover that you have dedicated years to a life you have never really chosen. That's when it looks in the mirror and realizes that the dreams it carried did not belong to you, but to the system. Imagine an entire country waking up from this trance. Millions of people refusing the singing of siren and choosing to hear the simplest sound, the beating of his own heart. It would not be chaos. It would be rebirth. But in the meantime, the siren keeps singing, and you now need to decide, are you going to follow your hypnotic melody, or are you going to cover your ears and seek your own inner music? You have already felt that everything around you seems like a staging, as if modern life were a great stage where everyone acts without realizing it. In Brazil, this theater is vibrant. The worker wears his productivity mask. The young man displays the mask of digital happiness. The politician boasts the mask of promise. And the audience applauds, even knowing deep down that nothing is real. It is the theater of the shadows. Everything seems, but nothing is. You believe you are living, but only plays a paper written by others. Thoreau sought the forest to escape this stage. He knew that simple life was not escape, but reconciliation with the real. Because in the city, in noise, in a hurry. Everything is projection, shadows that dance on the wall, while the true light remains hidden. Ask yourself, what is your shadow? Is the role of good employee, of obedient consumer, of distracted citizen? Or is your shadow deeper, the silence of a forgotten dream, suffocated under the masks you have learned to wear? The theater is so convincing that you forget the audience, and it also forgets that there is a backstage output, but it exists, and almost always reveals itself in the simplest moments, in the long look at a lone tree, in the spontaneous smile of a child, at the moment of deep breathing before bed. Modern life does not fear applause, trembles in the face of silence between one act and another, because it is in the interval that you can see. You no longer need to act. Imagine millions of Brazilians now dropping their masks, workers refusing the role of modern slaves, young people rejecting the script of the infinite comparison, families by choosing the royal conviviality instead of virtual distraction. The whole theater would collapse. But there is a risk. The stage offers comfort. Getting out of it requires courage, because when the lights go out, you see yourself before yourself. No script, no mask, no rehearsal. And that's the forbidden truth. You may never have lived, just interpreted. Are you ready to abandon the theater? Have you already suspected that there is a hidden key in your own life? A key that can open the invisible arrest of modernity, but almost no one dare to look? This key is not in banks, universities, governments, or companies. It is not sold in self-help courses, nor delivered by gurus. She is there, in the silence between one thought and another, in the simplicity you fear facing. In Brazil, the system does everything you never realize. This key offers you debts to keep your mind busy. It offers you entertainment to keep your attention dispersed. It offers you political promises to maintain your hope distracted. But it never offers you what you really free it out. Time to look inside. Thoreau found this key by choosing to live in contact with nature, away from the noise of cities. But you don't have to escape to the bush to discover it. Just courage to endure the emptiness. Just courage to be simple in a world that profits from its complexity. Imagine if millions of Brazilians discover this key at the same time. It would be like erasing a spell. The gears would stop, the machine would lose strength, the theater would collapse. And in place of prison, something new would come. A life lived from the inside out, not the other way around. But here is the mystery. The key does not open external doors, but internal. It does not free you from the world, but from yourself, of attachment, of fear, of insatiable desire. And this is the forbidden truth that no one wants you to find out. You are already free, always has been. The prison never existed, except within his mind. But the key is still in your hands, waiting for the moment you decide to use it. Is it now? You have traveled with me this path, from silence to mirror, from secret clock to the theater of shadows. And now, the time has come for the revelation that modern life fears. The forbidden truth is simple but devastating. Everything you are looking for is already in you, not in consumption, not in a hurry, not in promises, but in silence, in simplicity, in the courage to exist without masks. The system cannot sell it, cannot control this, and so it needs to hide it from you. In Brazil, millions live as if life were just running after survival, status, or recognition, but deep down they feel the emptiness. And this emptiness is not a curse, it is an invitation. The call to awaken, to break the invisible currents, to see that the prison has never been iron, but of ideas. Thoreau believed that a man's wealth is in the amount of things he can give up. And if there is a teaching to be recorded in your heart, this is this: freedom will not come when you get everything, but when you dare, you need almost nothing. Imagine a new generation of Brazilians awakening to this. People who understand that happiness is not in the windows, but in sunset. What fullness is not in a hurry, but in the present moment. What meaning is not in reflex O, but in essence. This awakening would change not only the country, but the fate of humanity. And now, given this revelation, the question echoes within you. Will you keep believing in the corner of Cyrene, the shadow theater, the machine that breathes for you? Or will you choose, here and now, to really live? The decision is yours. And perhaps this is the greatest act of rebellion of your life, being free in a world that profits from your prison. If this journey has awakened something inside you, like this video, Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to hear this forbidden truth. Comment below, what is your key to freedom? And get ready. In the next video, let's reveal the step-by-step to transform this awareness into daily practice.